I consider Troy Finner a friend, a colleague. In fact, the very first thing I did as mayor was ride with him on New Year's Eve. Have ridden with him in previous years, have seen how he does his job as a professional. Spent Saturday with him, Friday, so it's not an easy decision to see a public servant retire. I'm very confident it was in the best interest for Houston, the department, and for Chief Finner. It had become, it being the investigations and new materials, had become disruptive to the department. I talked to many officers at every level of the department. This had become the dominant focus of so much of HPD staff. We didn't discuss this morning the Hatcher letter that reopened the investigations. We had made such progress with the suspended cases dealing with all of the sexual assaults, the family violence. Just another example of the disruption is called, I actually wanted the review committee to come before council and the public today and give an interim report. We had to push that back. I know many of you were asking about it. I could go on and on about the indicators that new information, the investigation, the resources of reviewing all these cases were taking people off the street. It was my desire to wrap up the investigation when it was done properly. It was the review of the cases, and then we closed the investigation Thursday, and it was reopened Friday afternoon after revealing of the Hatcher letter. There's people wanting to ask for an investigation of when Chief Finner got the information. So the tough call is, what's in the best interest of Houstonians, the department, and Chief Finner, certainly in terms of public safety. And he chose to retire yesterday afternoon. It made me sick, as I mentioned, when I saw the last email, but I don't have time to be sick. I have to make a decision based on all the information that I'd received. With that said, I'll open it to questions. I do want the investigation and reviewing of the backlog to continue. Chief Satterwhite is an outstanding public servant. He and Troy are good friends. He and Chief Finner are close friends. But everyone is a professional, has responsibilities. The department's morale, I believe, will improve when we get HPD off of the front page and out of the news and back to crime fighting. Chief Satterwhite has made the hot spot in scenes of violence and understands the operation of the department as well as anyone. So I think we need to support Chief Satterwhite, thank Chief Finner for his public service, wish him well, and do our work. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for the leadership you are showing in this issue. There are people who are saying that this is all political, and that you came in and you have been working and you have not protected the outgoing police chief enough, because there have been a lot of issues inside the department which were not there in the previous administrations, which were things which officers and other employees were bringing out and trying to talk against their boss in place. And the way that the other mayors handle them is a little bit different from this. Was this a staging, a preparation for you to kick Finner out, and especially because he resigned and you have not even said, I accept or denounce the resignation, want to study it, you just appointed somebody or you have an interim person, which means that you were really prepared for him to go. Is this all working with others inside the department? Is this all part of the politics to kick him out at this point? I will continue to use that statement that he's been kicked out.
Well, first of all, that's an outrageous statement that probably you should even know is not correct. It's well documented, my support for Chief Finner, going back years. Rode with him as an assistant chief. Declared during my campaign, I don't know if you recall this, that he would be my chief, that he was a good chief, and he would be better. And then Channel 13 had us both on an hour-long interview, like in the first weeks of my administration. You may not even be aware of how strong I feel about it. I've tried to share it with you this morning. You know, the gentleman that sat at my breakfast table, 7 in the morning. You don't just talk business, you talk family. You talk gentleman to gentleman. But then I have a responsibility to Houstonians. I took an oath to protect them. And I don't know if you know my background. You know, I chaired criminal justice for 30 years. This ain't the first tough decision I've had to make. 106 prisons, 150,000 inmates. It was my responsibility to see that that agency and its $3 billion budget ran properly. I make the best judgment I can for the assignment that I've been given. HPD has been challenged since the incident reports were revealed. It's been under 4 police chiefs, 8 years of the previous administration. You know, there's plenty of fault to go around. I was chairman of criminal justice. Regularly, they would bring me issues and challenges, and I would collaborate and we'd fix them. It's amazing me that this was hidden. Apparently, some folks knew it. Even the email that's been revealed showed Acevedo knew about it. But what my purpose today is, what's in the best interest of Houstonians in regards to public safety. And I'm ready to move forward. And that's what we're going to do.
Mayor, you talk about making tough decisions.
Sure.
Can you just help clarify for us and for all the public?
Sure.
Was this a decision Chief Finner made on his own or more at your urging? In other words,
well, when I say a tough decision, that is the acceptance of his retirement. Obviously, we've had a dialogue. We're in constant contact about the operations of the department, the investigation, the review, the IAD. You know, when we had to reopen it, Thursday afternoon was a major game changer. That the person that started the investigation at IAD writes a letter that she heard such and such at a meeting in Houston that everyone knows was a command staff meeting, and she wasn't in the city. That's what the department's talking about leading into the new email that was revealed. So my judgment was we've got to get back to crime fighting. We've got to get out of the press. We've got to have the officers have good morale. When I got elected, the morale was boosted. In recent weeks, talking to officers up and down ranks, that they were concerned. He has feelings, he has a life. The conversation is so much a part of what he's contributed to this city. 34 years. Mayor. The gentleman went from lieutenant to assistant chief. He has a distinguished career. But the department was being overwhelmed by the discussion of new information. The email that revealed some discussion by Chief Finner, and I understand, and except that he said, I'm just not aware of it. But that doesn't speak to the concern of the rank and file or Houstonians or this press.
So did those emails lead to the conversation?
It was a final straw. I think that can certainly be an honest statement, but it was on top of the Hatcher letter and the backlog, and I could go on and on and on. It was the cumulative impact that it was have on the morale in the department, the focus of the officers, and the confidence that Houstonians need to have in their police department. Here's the bottom line. Chief Finner was spending so much time dealing with the press, dealing with the department. He hasn't had a conversation with the employee groups. It was affecting operations at HPD. That's the bottom line. I dealt with it because it was a distraction to the mission of the men and women in HPD.
I know suspended cases is a systematic issue at HPD. How is changing the chief going to solve the problem?
It will not be bothered at all. It's a smooth transition. Satterwhite was the acting chief that Chief Finner left to run the department when he would go out of town. So there's this very smooth transition.
Here, how long was last night's meeting with Chief Finner?
I didn't have a meeting last night.
Or how long was the meeting?
You saw me out of council chambers yesterday afternoon. We were discussing the best pathway to take.
And how long was that meeting, sir?
I didn't put a time frame on it.
And was that meeting called
It was
by
not
you,
quick.
or-
This was not an impulsive decision. You know, I was with Chief Finner all day Saturday.
And I asked her, because we were with Chief Finner yesterday, and hours before, he made it clear that there was no signs of him retiring, and said, in fact, he indicated to us, sir, that
You'd have to ask him. I mean, I was in the discussions, but it was a process that took some time to consider transition, retirement benefits. I could go on and on that factored in. I so appreciate his public service. There was a transition plan that allowed him to retire.
And does Chief Satterwhite come in as an interim
He's acting chief,
acting chief?
and that'll be determined as we go forward.
What are your plans, if any, in terms of an acting chief of searching out, or are you going to be searching?
That hasn't been determined.
Mayor, given the recent
We'll do the best
revelation-
interests of the department.
pardon me, sir. Given the recent revelations, can you help clarify, is Chief Finner now a subject, I'm hesitant to use the word target of the IAD investigation, or should he?
I don't
Is
think
there
that,
still the issue of how
well-
did this code come about, who is to blame, and who's gonna be held
well,
accountable?
first of all, we're not playing the blame game. There's plenty of blame to go around. 4 previous chiefs. And it's amazing to me that McClellan 2014 presentation to council doesn't get more attention. He said in 2014, we got 20,000 cases that we just can't get to. That was kind of the beginning of the issue. You got 3 other chiefs. You got an administration. You got a HPOU. You got council. I'm just shocked. You got to understand, I've spent my whole adult life in public policy. I cannot believe that it goes over 200,000 cases that are not incidents that are not being reviewed, and not someone didn't yell fire or come before this council or talk. I mean, you know, if you look at the email, Alceveda knew about it. The email reflects that Chief Finner knew about it. But why weren't they worked for the council and the mayor. Why wasn't the elected responsible people given that information before it approached 60,000.
Senate Bill 14.
I'm surprised, where were y'all? I'll say that.
Senate Bill 1445, TICO reforms, I think you voted for that, sir, says that if someone retires or resigns during an active IAD investigation.
He
it
doesn't,
just
we don't
go
have,
away.
to my knowledge, an active IED investigation of
That's the
Chief Finner.
question. Should he be part of the internal affairs investigation, given the recent revelation?
Well, first of all, he's not a part of the department as we stand here and talk to you. So there's no active investigation of Troy Finner at the department.
Mayor, you indicated the letter involving the Executive Assistant Chief Chandra Hatcher.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself indicating that she was in another place in the state of Texas while claiming she was part of a command staff meeting. Does Executive Assistant Chief Hatcher face any discipline?
Well, that's an active, Mario, that's an active investigation that I'm not gonna intervene in or speculate. I think it is unfortunate that once Chief Finner closed the investigation as to who knew what and when, it had to be reopened. And all I have read and heard is that, and you have to let the investigation go, what meeting was she speaking of that she heard distinctly Chief Finner to say, get rid of that, and it was not followed, so.
Does it concern you that a letter that you highlighted here today for being untruthful, and that's a big term,
That's your words, I did not say that.
I'm sorry, you highlighted a letter that she was not being.
That's in dispute, that raises serious concerns, that is impacting the performance of HPD in terms of morale. She's at the assistant chief level. She's a leader.
Right.
So
And
this
there are
letter
questions
is
of integrity.
this letter is circulating, and it is part of the disruption that I took in consideration to accept his retirement.
And
And
as
it's not any one thing, that is an issue, and then the email shows up, and it just starts at some point disrupting the mission of HPD.
Mayor, if I may for 30 seconds, let me just explain it. You had concerns yesterday because there was an integrity question involving Chief Finner and an email from 2018. We have a letter that we've highlighted from last week in our reporting that also raises concerns
Sure.
of integrity. And the reason why this question is being asked, because when you had questions of integrity involving Chief Finner, the city of Houston saw action. Now we have raised questions about integrity involving.
The difference is Chief Finner works for me. The assistant chiefs work for the chief. So you're mixing apples and oranges. Those are not comparables. Chief Hatcher's investigation is active as to the timing, content, and accuracy of her letter. That's being investigated. We ought to leave it alone. Let the department do its job. Chief Finner, with everything that's going on, chose to retire.
Mayor, Chief Satterwhite was also in a high-ranking position for several years. Should he have said something about the suspended cases?
Well, there's no indication that he knew anything about it, like the other 5,000 officers and command staff and 4 police chiefs and a mayor, and I could go on and on. It's just shocking to me that, first of all, who was the fool that came up with the idea of not looking into incident reports and saying we're doing this because we don't have staffing. We are understaffed, okay? We ought to absolutely agree on that. Fewer cops, police officers than we had 25 years ago. What better way to get the resources than to say, if we don't get resources, we're going to have incidents that are not going to be looked into. And some of them are some of the worst of the worst, with sexual assaults, rapes. You know, there's been some 70 cases that the review has shown the perpetrator's still out there, and we had reason to know who he was. Family violence. Why didn't that trigger the opportunity to go transparent in public, come right here at this horseshoe and say, they either didn't know or they weren't allowed to.
So to clarify, is it your understanding that Chief Satterwhite did not know about this code, or?
There's no indication that he did.
Mayor, following on that, in the selection process of a new chief,
Yeah,
my first question.
you talking about a new one like today?
A new permanent chief.
Permanent chief?
Finner, if Satterwhite's not elevated. What role will, if any, will HPOU play in that? And does it necessitate, given the question, how many of the command staff did know or had some knowledge? Does it necessitate bringing in an outside chief?
Well, first of all, HPOU will not play any primary role. It'll be my decision, talking to council, listening to Houstonians, my experience, my contacts, people's proven records, the recommendations. So that's will be the basis. And I'm not ruling out internal or external chiefs. I want someone that is a crime fighter, that realizes and appreciates the diversity of our city, and just wants to fix things. And quite frankly, there are a lot of best practices that I would share with someone that wants to continue or be chosen as chief. I personally think we need to get as many officers from behind their desks to out on the street. I think neighborhood patrols, you've heard, and quite frankly, you're talking about Satterwhite, he was heading up the collaboration effort with other agencies. Chief Finner placed him in charge. He's been meeting with the constables in the different school and Metro and DPS. I could go on and on. We've made, you want to hear some positive news, people are fired up in the agencies to support one another. Now, you want to turn this into criminal justice, how are we going to fix things? We need resources on the streets, but we need them in the forensics. We need the courthouse. How much time do we spend here yesterday and today talking about public safety and hotspots, and whether it's over at Potomac or whether it's on Southmore, hotspots are across this city, and we can't get to them.
Mayor, do you have an updated timeline on when you expect the internal affairs investigation to be wrapped up? And
Well, there was one closed. The big one was Thursday, up till Thursday. There's been a new one opened. There's none that's been filed on Chief Finner. So, you know, it's a process. And no, there's no way I would know that. That's an internal decision for HPD, quite
Fair enough.
frankly.
Let me ask you this. When it is all said and done, signed, sealed, and delivered,
Yeah.
what can the public expect to see in terms of documentation and transparency?
You're talking about the IAD?
Yes, sir.
I think you have to wait and see what they report. I mean,
Well, the reason I ask is Chief Finner, before he retired, pledged that he will be very transparent when it is complete. I'm asking you.
Well,
do
obviously,
you
I
expect
think
now interim acting Chief Satterwhite to do the same, or is the window of transparency going to close?
no, transparency is our best friend. And Chief Satterwhite will be very transparent, as I am. It's your department. It's your IAD. Of course, they should reveal what their findings were. It was prepared to be done. Let me just tell you what. Thursday morning, things were in a lot better shape in terms of going forward, conclusion of the review, and then Chief Finner had to deal with a reopening of IAD, which was a setback, and then he had to reopen it, and it's a process as we're going forward.
Mayor, considering that there's been a closure, a reopening, a lot of internal members impacted at the highest levels,
Sure.
have you given any reconsideration of a potential DOJ investigation into what has taken place here?
No, not
Why?
at all. Well, you know, I approached them before I did my review panel, and they said there's no allegation of a crime. I just wanted the Justice Department to use their resources, their investigative tools, their technology, and assist HPD and also this independent review group that I put together. And they said there's no allegation of crime. I mean, I would even challenge you. What would they be investigating? They don't deal with allegations. They don't deal with internal policy. They're a crime fighter. And there's been no, let me just emphasize, there's been no allegation through this whole process of criminal activity.
In light of the Hatcher letter to launch this investigation and the questions of integrity behind that, I believe that might be a development, which is why I asked this question.
Well, that's, as you describe it, it's an integrity issue, and it's not reached the threshold of crime. And that's the reason you need to let the investigation.
Is an IAD letter a government document?
Sir?
Is a discovery letter part of a government
Yeah,
document?
I don't know what law school you went to, but.
No, it is, correct?
But
if you
But there's been no allegation.
Right.
That's just the beginning of an internal investigation. That's why you have that process. And then they'll give their report, and then we'll see what it says. But you can't sit here and put somebody on trial and make, words matter.
I think Houstonians also are concerned about an investigation, sir, that started off a letter that is showing.
Well, that's the reason Houstonians ought to appreciate the Internal Affairs Division doing their work. It's a time-honored way of investigating officers. They will give a report, and then we'll see where it takes us.
Mayor, Proposition B came up strongly during this session this morning, and your collaborators, Pollard and the others, are actually asking questions, and the city will want to know, because you had already announced that you have a deal, and that the issue with the firefighters has been settled. And then we come here, and there is this confusion of councillors seemingly asking the residents and other people, what's going on? What are we going to get in the budget? What is this all about? Is it 1 billion or 8 trillion? Are you saying that what you said vis-a-vis working in collaboration with your councillors is being kept aside and you are just doing whatever you want? Or there's something they need to be told, and which we also want the residents to be told about this Proposition B? What's going on? Do we have a deal? Or as the attorney was saying,
you're talking about police or fire when you say
no,
a deal?
Proposition B is fire. Do we have a deal as you had announced, or are we following a tour that says the negotiations are going on? Who is
mediation is ongoing. The judge is closely monitoring it. The final agreement has not been signed, taken to court.
Well, you announced a final agreement before.
Of course, the courts are open process. I'll let you be one of the first persons to see it.
Mayor, you lead a majority city. It's been that way for a long time. Do you think that the department should be led by a qualified standard reflective of that minority status, majority, African American, Hispanic, Asian?
Sure. I mean, it's all important. And I have a strong record of diversity. That'll be a consideration. But qualifications, the ability to lead. So, yeah, the diversity is a part of everything we decide around here, as it is in our communities. I do think there's an opportunity to come together. I would hope this tough decision is not used to divide the city. I won't play a role in that. I'll fight it. Public safety is not a Democrat or Republican issue. If you want to speak to ethnicity, the African American community is in need of public safety probably more than any community in Houston. The unreported crimes that go on in the city are striking. That's the reason I've questioned the crime reports. Does it factor in higher response time? The failure to report? The undocumented community is afraid to turn in domestic abuse. So I can go on and on, but no, this is not lacking in diversity and respect for all of our communities.
Mayor,
How's that
one point
process
of
gonna
quick,
be, Mayor?
one quick clarification.
How's gonna be that process specifically to choose the permanent chief? Are you going to have a method to find the new chief? Are you gonna talk to Houstonians about it? How are you gonna get that feedback?
I'm going to use 52 years of experience, contacts, real-time contact with Houstonians. Obviously, I have a team that I've put together at City Hall that is diverse, that's going to help. I'm very fortunate to have a relationship with all the employee groups. It's how you govern. It's how you make decisions. You gather as much information and advice as you can get, and then you make the call, and then you're held accountable.
Do you have an estimated time frame for choosing
No,
a
no,
permanent?
no, 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 no. That's
It's
it's real premature to talk about the process of selection.
You would establish an outside third-party committee to look at the issue?
No,
What's,
you're looking at the committee.
no, the group you had with the Rangers and.
Who?
You had established an outside committee to look at
The review panel.
review panel, yeah.
Yeah.
What's their role going forward?
Same. I wanted them to give a report this morning. They were prepared to, but because of the changes that's taken place in the last 48 hours, I thought it was best that they would wait till next week so we can focus on their report.
Mayor,
what
one
exactly did Finner
clarification,
tell
Mayor.
you?
The dialogue you mentioned earlier, just yesterday, was that in person, over the phone, vis-à-vis your
We've,
chief of
we've,
staff?
we've met and over the phone, staff was involved.
This
I was
yesterday
running,
afternoon?
yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, what exactly did Finner tell you whenever you had that conversation, whenever he told you?
Well, I think, quite frankly, that's a private conversation. It involved transition, the process, how to protect the city. So it was just what you would expect, how we meet our responsibilities.
Mayor, will we have a committee to select the next chief? or
No, ma'am. Now, I could do like a lot of folks do for show, come up with an advisory group. Gives you an opportunity to appoint some folks that largely is for show. You know, I can start naming advisory groups that complain to me. We were appointing, we have never been given an assignment. No one listens to us. So I'm much more a can-do, let's fix it, use experience and contacts and go forward.
So those families, they're waiting for an answer on
Who?
those cold cases. Families, they're waiting for an answer for a long time. They
Sure.
see a light on the tunnel.
Sure, that is one of our priorities, to make sure that everyone's been contacted. It's an element of the report that my review group was going to give. They've reached out to HPD to make certain that they have made those contacts and they're accurate and timely. And so, yes, the victims are the ones that we need to spend more time talking about. And that was part of my consideration. We've got to have a police department that is back to crime fighting, response time, recruiting. You think recruiting hadn't been impacted by the activities that we're describing? I want people to get back to doing police work and get out of the press. That's not where the police department on a daily basis belong. It had become a distraction. If you don't remember a thing I say, the decision to move forward was made for the distractions that the department was encountering in every department. The morale was being impacted. I talked to officers at every level, diverse officers. They call me at 10 o'clock at night and they tell me how it's impacting the morale and operations of the department, to the point that I met my responsibility. And I'm very confident with where we stand today. With that said, let's go to work. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.